and thank you so much for watching. You guys are amazing. Thank you for commenting, liking, subscribing, all of those good things. You keep me motivated and inspired to keep on going with this. Thank you for all your well wishes. My hip has turned out great. I'm off crutches and everything is wonderful. We are already in part 2, sections 5, 6, and 7 of the Milan Art Mastery Program. So this is the mixed media part. We got to try out 3 new techniques, and it's only 3 weeks of work, 6 paintings, that's it. So let's dive right in. So my 6 paintings this month are stylistically all over the place. This is of course partly due to the fact that we're still trying out materials, finding our style. You do want to give yourself ample time to find that style of yours and to find your work process. I'm getting glimpses more and more now, so I think I might make it, but I'm already telling you, don't stress yourself. Don't settle for anything less than what is uniquely your thing. If you need more time for part 2, take it until you move on to part 3, until you have that breakthrough. Or move on to part 3, but then you have to know that you might be painting some things for portfolio that you might have to scratch out of portfolio again in the end, because it's not going to be cohesive. Because I do catch myself getting a little worried about not making it in time. Everybody has a completely different path, and my issues might not at all be yours. I hope to encourage you to keep on going, because it gets tough sometimes. It gets challenging. It gets intimidating, and all of those good things. And I want you to witness it on me. Here I am, quite vulnerable at the moment, but I think that's the only way to find what I want to find. And oh my God, I want to find it so badly. Do not try to be someone else. Even though we do sometimes say emulate another artist's style, do it your way. Whatever you do. This goes right into the next tip really, which I think I might have said before. Analyze, don't judge. These are 2 completely different things. One is kind and one is aggressive. Judging stresses out your weaknesses and it causes you to fight against your weaknesses. Analyzing is geared towards finding your strengths and making those the important part of you and not your weaknesses. You are your strength. You're not your weakness. That is a super important shift in mindset. So I did take ample time to analyze and not judge what went wrong with my paintings that I don't think are very successful, which is very subjective. And I will share those insights with you. So section 5 in part 2 is collage. I was looking forward to this. I started this one with a little bit something in mind, and this one with nothing in mind. I consider this more successful. So here I just started collaging around and it turned out really weird. I think I'm still hesitant about showing my weird side, and I should stop calling it weird. But what to paint is just a huge struggle for me. The problem for me with planning what to paint is that is going to be such a left brain work. And you really want to paint in your right brain. And I had fun with the right brain. This was a collaged piece from a fresco. So it's really a collaboration between me and an artist centuries ago, which I find kind of exciting. But then, you know, what does it mean that I collaborate with an artist who made this fresco centuries ago? You know, I would have wanted to go deeper. It just felt not meaningful enough. So I consider this not very successful, mainly because it was kind of struggling throughout the whole thing. I have this yearning to be very planned and to know precisely what I'm doing. And on the other hand, I feel myself really wanting to go wild with bold and mark making that is energetic. And I found a reason for that. Within the program, you do this thing called DISC assessment, where you see which personality type you are. And I cannot, for the life of me, figure out which one I am. I'm two polar opposites. And I think that's the struggle I'm feeling. My tip actually is do not despair. Keep going. There was also archetypes and what's your archetype. And I was much clearer on that. So I'm pretty clear on what my archetypes are. But that DISC assessment still has me flabbergasted. Maybe I'll figure it out. Maybe it'll turn out that that's exactly what makes me special, that I'm the polar two opposites and I'm going to have to somehow combine them. We shall see. Embrace your weirdness. And I've said it before, shouldn't call it weirdness, shouldn't call it awkwardness. Your uniqueness. Start embracing it, start looking at it, and start incorporating it into your lifestyle. I honestly think I have already changed how I dress and how to put myself out into the world. I'm not conforming as much to what other people might think looks good, because it doesn't matter. It matters what's truly and uniquely me. So if you don't know what's you, you can always ask yourself, how would I want a big art magazine to write about me or to write about my art? Shall it be whimsical, serious, enlightening, playful, insightful? How would you like somebody to describe it? And maybe that can bring you a little closer. And what does that mean? How do you look? Even as an artist, hopefully we're all going to be very successful and people are going to want interviews with us and there are going to be photographs taken with us next to our paintings. It's good if there is a cohesion between you and your paintings. So start thinking about that. Also, for example, I'm writing a newsletter. I've been writing that newsletter for 2 years and still it evolves and I'm finding my voice and how I phrase things or how I want to come across to people. So practice being you, basically. I sometimes worry that I might not end up making sellable art. Don't let the thought of making sellable art inhibit you from making art that's truly you. I want to just say trust the process, or in this case, the program, because that's exactly what she's going to help you do. Because within the art that's truly you, some of that is definitely going to be sellable. I promise you that. I'm 100% sure. So finally, I get to talk about the piece that I like better. I didn't even know that it was going to be a portrait. I just started with the background. There's a lot of sheet music that I found at the flea market. So that is my tip. Go to the flea market for really great collage materials. I loved also that old paper. Old documents are wonderful. They're really cheap and they're not usually that glossy stuff. And speaking of cheap flea market finds, not so cheap on the other hand is art material itself, and you know that. For me, it turns out that I'm spending about 100 euros per month, I would say, on art materials, even though I would think I have everything I need. I ended up making a background and then thinking this might be good for a background for a portrait. And I like portraits, still being like, I don't know what to paint. This is, in a way, a self-portrait because this is me as a little girl. And I ended up recollaging because I would have needed to think about that before, because then I would have made a different background. And I think I could have done better if I had known what I'm gonna paint to begin with. Could have planned the composition and all of that good stuff. Yes, I told you my main issue is the what to paint, followed very closely by making the source that I'm gonna be painting from. And I don't seem to be taking enough time for that right now because I always want to rush to the studio and get painting. And then I'm like, but what and how? Tip here I want to give you is observe when you are at a stage with the acrylics where you're not getting the results you want anymore. Somebody asked me that in the comments, and thank you so much for asking. How far should you take acrylics until you move on to oils? The answer is, it's very individual. Sorry, I can't give you an exact number, but observe yourself. I was at a point where I'm like, I just don't like acrylics. They just don't do what I want. You know, they're kind of hard. And then I moved on to oils, and I'm like, with oils, it's easy. With oils, I'm getting the effects that I want. And I realized that it wasn't necessary for me to take the acrylics as far as I took them, as far into details as I took them, because I kind of wasted a lot of time trying to get an effect that I was not able to get with acrylics, but I was easily able to get it with the oils. And so this is something you might want to observe in your own painting. Some people go all the way to finishing stage and they only use oils for the last highlights and the darkest darks, and maybe some glazing to move the foreground forward and move the background back. I'm a little bit on the other side, where I do with acrylics just the rough stage, just the dark, medium, and bright areas, and I don't worry about how pretty my brush strokes are, because I never get them to be pretty with acrylics. And then I move on to oils, where I can do all of that. I know a lot of people ask that, you know, is my style going to look like everyone else's in the Milan art mastery programs? And the Milan say it's not true. Not everybody ends up with the same style. I think there is quite a large number of artists who do end up calling their style abstract realism, and that is, you know, they create sources from photographs, which creates realism in paintings, and they put the sources kind of on an abstract-ish type background, which is cool. It's just not my thing. I really like my subjects to have a more defined space to live in. I do want to tell a story, and I think that our spaces that I get to create on canvas are something super exciting. The thing is, the moment you take a photograph for a source, your proportions are going to be exactly right, and that makes it look very real. And the moment you distort things a little bit, it becomes something else that's not realism anymore, and I'm a little more interested in that. So creating sources is going to be big for me, and it's actually not that easy if you cannot create sources from photographs. But for now, not to worry, because the next section is abstract art. So again, I kind of have a yuck and a yum. In case you're not guessing, this is my yuck, this is my yum. And we shall analyze why. I love abstract art. In my dream world, I'd not need a source, and I would just go ahead and create, but it turns out I need a little bit of a source. So I made a source for this one. To be perfectly honest, I used a little bit of AI. I was actually combining two completely different sources, and I thought it made something very interesting. I thought it looked good digitally, but it looked a little like watercolor. And I was not able, with my acrylics, to create that watercolor look. Other problem, I was way too married to that source. So the whole painting process basically was left-brained. And I think the biggest struggle is that it was AI, which was just not me. I have some very strong feelings about AI, and most of them are not very positive. I felt like it betrayed myself, my creativity. I feel very non-genuine when I look at this. There are elements that I like. There, like the pebble element here, I like that is me. It's almost painful to look at this, and I will never ever use AI again, I think. So I have concluded some things that were very important for me to figure out. And so thank you, bad painting. I know a lot of people don't mind it, but it's not about what everybody else says. It's about how I feel about it. And I don't feel good about it. I just don't. Complete opposite was the other one. Now, she has a whole video on how to judge your own work, or how to judge work generally. And then she judges actual work. My tip here is brace yourself, because it could potentially really tick you off. It ticked me off in a couple places, and I disagreed in a few places, and that's okay. Don't get too aggravated. It's fine. You get to disagree. Take it in. Maybe watch it a second time. Maybe you'll feel differently the second time. Maybe you start seeing what she says the second time around. Maybe not. Maybe you feel even stronger what you felt the first time. I can tell you some paintings that she analyzed that I analyzed completely differently and that I find highly successful, and she did not. And sometimes you start like almost getting scared. Maybe she's gonna reveal that everything I make is terrible. So no, just brace yourself. It's very good information. She has some very good tips on how to judge your own artwork, how to make a successful artwork by checking off all those important boxes. For me, one of the best things is that it should work from different distances. So it should work from far away, like say somebody from the other side of the street looking at your art. It should work. It should have enough contrast. It should add enough interest that they come a little closer. And then they're standing at your door, and it should also work from there so much that they're going to be wanting to come closer. And guess what? Once they're standing right in front of it, there should be something that is rewarding, because, oh my God, from up close, you see things you didn't see from far away that were worth seeing. But all those three distances should work. Now, having said that, my second abstract piece, this one, it might actually not tick off all the boxes. It doesn't have as many layers of depth, I think, as she would want, but I like it. It feels very me. I'm technically not too thrilled with the combination of drawing and painting. This was also, again, this was not really with a source. So if you're not going to have a very specific source, you should still have a specific enough sketch or idea or whatever that you can plan. You need to plan your painting a little bit. You want to know what to start with. I guess that gives a specific look too if you end up painting around your subject, but it's much easier if you go for the background first and then on top of that you go for your main subject. And I ended up kind of painting the foreground and the background at the same time, and of course that is never a good idea. So start making sources. That means don't make them in your head. Please sit down and make them is a whole other thing. And if you're like me and you have a lot of ideas, you kind of don't know where to start. Well, just start somewhere. Start taking them out of your head and putting them down. In my case right now, it's literally just a pencil sketch very often. Sometimes I just have a bunch of reference photos. That might be enough at some point, I'm not sure yet. But do have sources. It's going to really help you. As for making sources, since that's all we're talking about, feels like, get off your devices. You know, they show you how to find stuff on the internet. Internet is great. But you know what's even greater? At least for your main inspiration, oh my God, it's the real world. You don't have to agree, but it's something I feel very strongly about. Isn't the real world what we want to talk about in art? Also, just to know why you're painting something. It's found out there, not in here. Which brings me to the next section, actually. So this section was rollers, using rollers. As I said, I've went out for inspiration. I was at the train station and I took some photographs. So yay for me, I went out there, got inspired. I am not happy with this painting. But let's analyze what went wrong. What I think went wrong is that my why was not strong enough. I like painting human beings, that's not enough. So why this painting? What I could have stressed was the straight lines of this background versus the softness, warmth, colorfulness of the people. In which case, I would have used rulers to make these lines really straight while making the people much softer. Or I could have decided I'm gonna use this light that hits, make it really harsh, maybe even a hard light from the back, and then make a soft light, a warm light, which in the end I kind of tried from the front, which is all the yellow. Yeah, that would have worked if I would have planned it that way. My why was not strong enough. There has to be a meaning. Another meaning could have been like all the people there, gathered here, and then this one person walking off in a different. I think she should have walked in this direction. This is wrong, Coming, going. I could have enhanced the kind of meaning of coming and going in a train station, which would have given me a completely different motivation to paint. What I'm saying is I did not have fun painting this because there was no why. Even though I'm sure this painting would be much better if I did another session on it. I think it's okay at this stage to abandon projects. Also, we were using rollers. I started with the rollers and I was like, yuck. I was immediately yuck. And I thought, okay, I don't need to use rollers, not my thing. Tip here, give everything at least a second chance. And I did the whole background of this with rollers and I really like it. I really like it. I like it so much that I'm sure I'm gonna use it again. I kind of even had a little bit of an aha because it's kind of surreal, right? As a teenager, when I first saw surrealist paintings, it was an immediate love. So now I'm like, oh yeah, of course. So that might be something that's in me somehow. I have to encourage myself because I'm worried about it being strange. But I really like it. Tip here, working with rollers, either make them wet evenly before you paint, or use them dry on wet paint. And I used the kind of dry roller and took up some paint with it. It made these very even gadunk, 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 gadunk marks. Do you know what I mean? Which I didn't like. Maybe you'll like it. But it worked much better when the roller was wet. Even if I didn't take up the paint very evenly on the roller, it just made cooler things. Also, I start to really like putting wet paint on and then using the kind of dry-ish roller on the paint that's already on the canvas. Try some stuff out. Rollers can be pretty cool. If you don't know what you want, remember what you don't want also gets you closer to what you want. So those are good finds too. For this one, I had a photo source. That was the initial inspiration for it. Then I took some reference of some Japanese style waves for this, and I came up with this humanish head on the heron, and then I made some sketches for composition, and that's all I worked from. So color scheme wise, I had the photograph and I had another painting that I liked color scheme wise. I think from here on forward, I will be spending much more time creating the sources, because that seems to become my the source for dissatisfaction is the lack of a source. Oh my God, I've said the word sources so many times. I was unsure whether it was going to work with this very flat wave style and then the very three-dimensional looking herons. Of course, there is a meaning to it. And I posted in the community, not about how many people are going to like your painting. Even if you appeal to only every 1,000th person oh my God, a lot of people are gonna like your stuff. So even if in the community only 3 people like your painting, it's fine. Have the courage to hear some input. Some people liked everything about it except for the humanized strange faces. Some people thought that the two styles don't really work together. Some people thought it works really well together. Getting input is important, and then finding out whether you feel that you need to change something about it or not is a whole other thing. I'm not saying you should listen to every advice you get, because you might disagree with what some people say, but it helps you think about it. And some people are so kind and they take so much time to comment. Thank you if you're watching. I apologize for not being in the community so much anymore. It's really a time thing. I don't find myself having the time anymore. I always thought it was because people are dropping out. No, people are just busy painting. Especially the workbook stuff is worth gold. I've said it before. Do it. And here we come to the next piece of information that might be important to you. They schedule 2 weeks break between part 2 and part 3. Until now, everywhere where it said break, it was meant as an actual break. This time, where they say break, it's not at all a break, because they want you to create 20 sources during that break. I'm just letting you know already, just so you know, for your planning of the program, if you're a very structured planner. And I want to also say, do start looking for local opportunities. In my case, there's much more going on locally than I thought. I can even take part in an open studio day. Anybody can sign up, can open their studio, and it's an open studio day. And I will definitely take part in that. It turns out that there's a whole network of artists in this community that I never knew about. And they post opportunities for contests and stuff like that, where you can start showing your art. And because of finding that, I'm starting to feel that it might be possible that I become a real artist. Again, open your eyes into the real world. I think real artists out there, like networking, yes, it works quite well online, but it doesn't compare to people seeing your actual art. So yeah, open your eyes for whatever opportunities you might have. It might be a cafe that frequently hangs up different art from artists that are local. Ask them, talk to them, find things like that, because that will create this thinking of, maybe this is all gonna work. So do so. Last but not least, thank you so much. 2 people have answered for my last video. I was frustrated about paint seeping under the tape, and I got 2 very hot tips. And as you can see on this one, it works. So what you do when the tape is on, you paint over it, either in the color of your paper, or you use gel medium. You paint over the edge, I would say in both directions with gel medium, and you make sure that tape is tucked down, because that's quite tacky and it will dry. That will prevent paint from bleeding under. Yay! That concludes it. And I have 3 more active painting weeks coming up, and then the 2 weeks to make sources. I hope I have a few breakthrough pieces in the next 3 weeks. We shall see. I would consider this one and this one my most successful pieces for this month. They're not complete breakthroughs, but there was gold that I found and that I'm carrying on with me for the next assignments. So I wish you a lot of breakthroughs and a lot of insights, and find the courage to carry it out into the world, because that's what we artists do, right? So have a great time. Please ask questions. Please make comments about whether you agree or disagree. I'd be curious to know which one of these paintings is your favorite one. I'll be happy to read it. Take care. Bye-bye.